Good morning, good morning, good morning. Greetings, peace, and power. At least good morning to the people on the West Coast. As to the people on the Midwest and the people on the West Coast, good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to this session, to the second session on human rights development. And the second session in our orientation on city and state facilitators. We're going to talk about human rights development because this is what this is what the course is about. It's about teaching and training city and state facilitators to be able to repair our cities and states under the rubric of international law, human rights, and indigenous rights. So what we're really talking about is a combination of things. We're talking about the right to develop, which is reparations. We're talking about self-determination, which is reparations. We're talking about humanitarian law, which is reparations. We're talking about decolonization, which is reparations. We're talking about all of these things. And these are the topics that are going to be discussed and taught in the training session. And the training session again it's going to take about 2 years to train you sufficiently to become a human rights facilitator, and the syllabus is on the website. It deals with a myriad of issues that one has to be able to cover to be able to administer or represent a city or state, and to be able to articulate the rights of your constituencies before a city, a city council, before a state legislature, before a federal legislature, before the UN. You'll be taught how to address the UN, how to in complaints as well as verbally. You'll be taught the research of development, the research of rights. So this last week we talked about mainly the rights part of reparations, our rights to indigenous status, our rights to self-determination, our rights to our identity, our rights to nationality. This week, we're talking about human rights development. Human rights development, which is, and we're going to look at it through programs and projects. So I have a video for you. But before I go into the video, I'm going to talk about what the vision is. The vision for cities, the vision for the national vision. The vision for cities is that in every city in which we are the majority, how democracy is supposed to work. Democracy, just on a definitional level, is one man, one vote, which means that in cities in which we are the majority, and there's 1,200 cities in the United States in which we are the majority, there's also a slew of cities in which we have significant populations. New York, Chicago, Newark, Cleveland, there's so many different cities in which we have a significant population, and then there's cities in which we have the majority populations. Let's look at both of those scenarios, so you'll see what your training is going to allow you to, what kind of power you'll be able to elicit from your training. If you were in a majority population city, such as Baltimore, and Baltimore has been in the news, and we have a lot of cities like that. Let's just look at Baltimore. It's a majority, and Detroit, majority, without a doubt, majority population, Afro-descendant cities. But in those cities, Afro-descendants are being mistreated and have been so for over 100 years because of a white minority population that deals with economics. Now, we're going to train you how to understand the economics of a city. I can tell you about the city economics of Detroit probably better than Baltimore. In Detroit, the city budget is $2 billion. So with this training, you will be able to sit on a city council of our own making. Let me explain. The present Detroit City Council, they already had their election. However, when you look at democracy, it's like a snapshot. So if they had an election today and we had one a year ago, if they had one a year ago and we had an election today, the most recent result would be would signal the transfer of power. So if we had an election in Detroit today, and we wrote the ballot, which is to withdraw from the present city council, to declare your identity as an indigenous person, which is very, very important. This is something that, because indigenous people have superior rights to land. Also, and this is also important to know, and we'll be teaching you this too, Afro-descendants have a right to land. They have a superior right to land than colonialists. Let's talk about this. Colonial people, which is the white Americans, who came from different countries and by force have taken over the process. Good. I see you, Elena. Come on in. I'm going to have one of our human rights defenders join us, Elena Porter. I've seen her just come on screen. Make your picture hot, because I'm going to have you come in after a while. Elena is going to, which is one of our human rights defenders and one of our professors. She is going to go into infrastructure development, because that's what that's what city councils do. They deal with the structure and the infrastructure of their city. They deal with the schools. They deal with the police department, the city jails. They deal with everything from street cleaning to they deal with everything that the city deals with, infrastructure. So in this class, we're going to explain how all this infrastructure, how it works, and what kind of monies come in to allow you to have this type of infrastructure. Again, Detroit has a $2 billion budget. Chicago has a $6 billion plus budget. And so, thank you, Elena. I see she is ready. Okay. I'm going to get you in here. Okay. I seen your bullet point, and that's very good. I don't know how you did that, but in any case, we're going to talk about recovery and redevelopment. And I'm glad to see. I don't see your picture though, Elena. Put on your webcam so I can see you. There she is. Okay. Hey, Elena. All right. Good. Okay. All right. I'm introduced Elena Porter. She is one of our human rights defenders and one of our law professors, and she has a PowerPoint on recovery and development, and that's exactly what you're going to be trained as a human rights city and state facilitator and a human rights director. The course takes place over about 2 years. After about 6 months of us training you on the fundamentals, when I say the fundamentals, we're going to train you in legal analysis, the pertinent conventions, because there's so many conventions, but we're going to train you on the pertinent conventions that deals with our case and the pertinent resolutions. So we're going to talk about In the course, we're going to talk about the Convention on Civil and Political Rights, Indigenous status, the Convention on Indigenous Status. We're going to talk about the Third Convention on Elimination of Racism, and about 3 other major torture convention that deals with the police and police brutality. So we're going to talk about a myriad of conventions for your analysis, so that when you are finished with this training, you will be able to sit on a council with others who have been trained similarly to be able to govern a city, your city, or govern your part of a city. Now, and let me give you the vision. In the areas in which we have the majority of the population, we will be, of course, that would be the easier place to put in our ballot process. And you have to put in a ballot process to obtain power. And that's how the white Americans do their ballot, do their ballots, and that's to transfer power and to transition power from one party to another party. When we put in our election apparatuses, it's the same thing. We're doing that to transfer power to the people. So that's one schematic. And then once we have that power, of course, we'll teach you after the fundamentals. We'll teach you and put you on these projects of infrastructure, and this is what Elena's PowerPoint has. And I don't know how you put your PowerPoint up, because, but I'm about to let you in on this, Elena, so that you can go over your right to recovery and the right to development. Okay, there it is. Okay, okay, good. Let me run this video for our candidates, and then I'm going to introduce you, Elena, and then I'm going to let you go with explain your part of the development that course that they would be sitting in, so that they would they'll understand the full range of what it is to be a human rights a human rights teacher and a human rights representative. So I'm going to run a short video, a 3-minute, 30-second video on the right to development. So that, and then I'm going to introduce Professor Porter so she could go further and give you an overview of what part of your course would look like. So I'm going to put the video on now. Let me see, video. Okay, and I'll come in. We'll come in right after the video for you. Okay.
Development is a human right and
belongs to everyone.
The General Assembly adopted the United Nations Declaration on the Right to Development
in 1986. The 4th December 2011 is the 25th anniversary.
It defines development as a social, economic,
cultural and political process.
It aims at the constant improvement of the well-being of the entire population.
For all individuals and peoples.
On the basis of their free and meaningful participation in development.
And in the fair distribution of the benefits of development.
But the challenges are many.
Poverty,
disease,
and hunger.
Climate change,
desertification, and resource exploitation,
forced displacement, discrimination, and conflict.
all hold back development. Governments must respect, protect and fulfill all human rights to ensure freedom from fear and freedom from want.
To achieve development, we must protect people, the land, and natural resources.
Ensure access to basic services for health,
For education,
For energy.
we must act together.
Helping transfer technologies, instigating fair trade and effective aid for development,
Providing affordable access to medicines,
it's people who are at the center of development.
Help make the right to development
a reality for all.
The right to development deals with, and this is what you're going to, and this is what we're going to train you to deal with. And because we have the same problem, we have our resources have been exploited. So you would be able to reconfigure the resources. Let's go back to Detroit and our Chicago example. Detroit has a $2 billion budget, and that budget is given to the city council so that they can direct it to develop the infrastructure. And of course, as we know, they've taken this money and used it for their own purposes. And our communities are dirt dog poor. Our health, the crime, we've been exploited. So you would be put in power to reconfigure and develop the people, the health, a lot of infant mortality. We have, of course, a lot of poverty, crime, our juveniles. So our health, you would have a budget for that. And it would be in streets, transportation, energy, all of that would be something that you would have to deal with as the new government, as a new governing body. So, and this, and we're showing you and giving you this so that you'll understand that that we have the right to development. It's a human right. So as you're trained in human rights, you will begin to understand the full panoply of things that you would have to do in order to develop the Afro-descendant people. So, Elena, I'm going to let you come in. Let me make sure that your mic is hot. Okay, give me a test, Elena. Can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear your mic. So let me see. Okay, that's your webcam. Okay, turn your mic on so that I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Okay. Go ahead, Elena. I'll make my picture go. Oh, let me see how I can minimize. Go ahead, Elena. I'll try to minimize my picture, but go ahead. You got it.
Okay. Greetings, everybody. My name is Elena Porter, and I am one of the professors here at the American Institute for Human Rights. And I specialize in indigenous status, encapsulated peoples, decolonization, and humanitarian and refugee law. All of these bodies of law pertains to us as a special population who has been in a permanent state of crimes against humanity, and I'm even ready to argue permanent genocide, which we are seeing in terms of some of the humanitarian issues that we have now. We have people who's living in areas and in zones that who do not have access to services, who is experiencing a wealth of internal and external violence, and this violence is permanent. So, learning about international and human rights law will give you the tools, holistic tools that you need and information that you need to, when you're sitting in meetings and in discussions where there's things that's in terms of resources for us being disseminated, you will be able to assert some things that can redirect those resources specifically to us without being charged as being a radical or racist or whatever. So, for me, learning about international and human rights law as it applies to development, I am able to use the correct language in the correct way to frame our issues in a framework that identifies a historical context, a context that involves our identity, our history, and the economics, the politics, and the legal parameters that follows. So I urge anyone who has the time, and I will say the money and the resources and the space, to invest in these courses, because we need your voices. We have people placed in areas such as school boards and such as sitting in meetings that has no idea of what they're talking about, and they're furthering our furthering our victimization and really putting us in a bad and keeping us in a bad position in genocidal conditions. So I urge you all to, if you have the time, you have the money, you have the resources that you're willing to dedicate to these courses so you can be viable. You may be sitting in a parent conference meeting with your niece or nephew or your son, your granddaughter, and blatant human rights violations. We're exposed to them every day because we don't even know how to identify them. And in some cases, we are undermining our leadership that is actually doing the work, but because we are political cannon fodder of the right, of the left, of the this, of the that, if the Democrat or the Republican, we undermine our good leadership that's sitting on school boards, that is sitting in high places where we need them, but because we are a ignorant population, we're politically ignorant. We're ignorant of the law, and it's costing us and it's killing us. That is why we need people to become human rights defenders. We need people trained directors, human rights directors, and we also need diplomats, because the space that we have created is a legal and a political space. And it's up to each one of us to enforce it, no matter where we are. Your identity belongs to you. So with that being said, I'm going to yield the floor back to Dr. Ansari, and then we'll go over the development plan because I want him to respond to my statement.
Okay. All right. Let me see if I can bring myself back up. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I'll just stay small. No problem. The structure that and I'm trying to, as my best, to help out, because we need in this structure we want to seat 400 defenders are city facilitators and state facilitators all over the country. We have 20 really populous states in which we're in. And then, of course, in the states, we have cities within those states. So we're talking about at least 20 facilitators per state, because this information that you'll be receiving in this course is very unique and rare. This international human rights law supersedes domestic law in a lot of instances. And this information, the average lawyer does not have this information. The average person that's on the city council, they don't have this information. So we're going to give you superior information so that you'll be able to obtain the funding, because even as a nation, and we have moved this piece into a structure of an Afro-descendant nation. So as these areas would be democratized, they would be democratized under indigenous status, that would indigenous nationhood status. This status allows you the ability under the human rights, under prevailing international human rights law, to educate your own children, because we have the right to, everybody has a right to educate their own children, and everybody has a right to govern themselves. That's what democracy is. So this information would allow our city and state facilitators to be able to do that. They would be able to, of course, maintain your American citizenship as well, because that's part of who we are. But you also have your own identity, your own national citizenship as well. And because of that, you're able to draw state funds and federal funds and international funds to be able to deal with those infrastructure problems that we have.
Mm-hmm.
This is called self-repair.
Mm-hmm.
This is operational reparations.
And if
Go
I
ahead.
may, Dr. Ansari, one thing that we can do and that I'm working on right now is we have as a special population, and due to our circumstances and some of the social problems and emergencies that we have to address, I propose we immediately go into a special jurisdiction, a neutral jurisdiction, and that can be done because of the historical aspect of us and as a population. And where we are right now, that is like a safe place that we can stop some of the violence, put in the rehabilitation services that we need to stop the internal violence, start negotiating some things such as authority transfers, start the devolution process as well, so we can start relieving some of these stressors that's on our population as a result of this historical conflict that no one seems to want to address now. So though that's where I am, and that way we'll be able to pull in those resources and access the resources that are there for a population like us for development. Everywhere where we live, the infrastructure is horrible. In the areas where we live, the school system is horrible. As a matter of fact, some of the programs in the curriculum is re-victimizing our children. And as a cover, people are using colorblind and neutral language and coming up with big words like inclusion. And the average John Doe does not know the spirit behind these things. And some of the times us as parents and co-workers, we co-sign, and sometimes we sit in these backdoor rooms and we go along with a lot of things that we shouldn't go along with because we're ignorant of where we are. Or some of us may know and just don't care. But it's a new day now. And the bottom line is we have to do what it is that we need to do to protect our population.
Absolutely. So what we're talking about is putting a bright light. This is a new day. Let's take your city, and I just want to go into your own imagination for a bit so that you can really understand what we're doing. We're talking about a systematic change. You know, a lot of time we need a systematic. It's true. We need a systematic change. We need a change from their system to our own self-governing system. And that's possible in the United States.
Exactly.
In the United States, there's maybe about 530 microstates. We would be the 531st microstate in the United States. There's over 500 American Indian tribes. Each one of these Indian tribes are / a state or / a nation. Then we have satellite nations that are also insular nations called, and you heard of them, but you never really thought, well, how do they fit into the American quilt? But we have Guam. You heard of Guam. You heard of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, the Mariana Islands, Marshall Islands, the Samoans, Fiji. You're wondering, okay, so each of these microstates have their own government, which is able to look out for their own people. Now, we're the largest state. So we would be very, very powerful. So don't look at us like we would be the American Indians, because there are only like 2 million people. We have 45 million. Some people say 60 million Afro descendants here. So we would have a lot of power. This is what the United States is really fearful of, that we stop being a paper tiger and become a real tiger. So they've made these labels. We talked about it yesterday, Elena. I think they don't have a definition. They know who we are, but they call us Black identity extremists.
Well, how can you criminalize me for just living? Okay.
This is going to be. That's why they can't come up with a definition of what that means, because we have the right to be. So if our identity is different than your colonial identity, and we really want to be and have our own identity, how could that be extreme or criminal?
Yeah.
So
really?
we're about to challenge these people, because that's they are trying to chill your right to not be an inferior people, be an inferior person, because the lack of knowledge of your own identity as an indigenous people and all of these rights causes Ferguson. It causes you to be choked out in New York. It causes a little kids, Tamir, to be shot in Cleveland. It allows us to be exploited. So this is the reason why the U.S. is fearful that we begin to understand who we are, because our main weapon, this is why, Elena, this is really why sometimes I really get so angry at the Negroes and civil rights, because they should have taught our people this. Our greatest asset, our greatest weapon is our population. We have numbers. All we have to do is exercise our numbers in Chicago, in Detroit, in Baltimore, and all of these cities in which we have majority populations are having significant part of the population. All we need to do is wise up. And then we will begin to have Chicago and Baltimore. We can change Baltimore. Baltimore was in the news. The Trump said it was part of it was rat roasted. And we can get rid of everything there, and we can build the city up. We can build those schools up. We can get rid of that police department, retrain them in human rights, put in our own police force. Have a safe neighborhood. We can reduce the crime to almost zero, because when people have jobs, when they have opportunity, then you have less gangs, you have less conflict, people are less angry, families are stronger. A lot of times families break up because they don't have finance. So if the men would be working, we can put the men to work. Well, the men are untrained, so we're going to show
that comes under rehabilitation. We can rehabilitate them and get them the skills they need. Baltimore is a great place to start because it's near water. There's a lot of ports there, and that's an opportunity for access to shipping, to the fishing industry, distribution, logistics. There's a lot of opportunity there that we could train those men to do. There's a lot of property there that we can access and get the resources to rehabilitate. Right now, we have to look at our issue from the perspective of we are a war-torn country, and that's how we have to address it.
I'm glad you said war, because this is another area, a thing that we have not understood, especially from the civil rights people, because they always want they want to integrate and all this assimilations. No, we are a people that have always been at war.
Yes,
and not that we projected the war. We were attacked. We were captured. We were captured in our lands during the fourth population wave and brought over here and put into a warlike status. And we have never gotten out of that status, because even after slavery ended and discrimination, Jim Crow began, which is an at-war status. So we have never gotten out of that at-war status. Just recently, I renewed my international bar, my international bar membership, and I joined the War Crimes Committee, the Indigenous Committee, and the Judicial Committee. And the reason why I joined the War Crimes Committee, Elena, and our viewers, is because we are in this at-war situation, so we are entitled to extra protections. And I bet you Elena has this in her PowerPoint that she wanted to show you, that we're in the protection of the Geneva Convention, and she loves the Fourth Geneva Convention.
Oh, I love the Fourth Geneva Conventions. That's my saving grace. And I won't go into it a whole lot, but under those Fourth Geneva Conventions, as a special population, there's certain things that we can do in terms of how our policing. If we want the police in our area trained in human rights, yes, we can have that done. We can train our own police in the areas where we are the majority population. We can request that they be removed.
Yes.
Under those Fourth Geneva Conventions, because they are a threat. And we train our own people and put them in, or they be retrained. But it can't be business as usual where you just go kill people willy-nilly and expect, people to just smile and just go away. So the bottom line is we have to change the way that we think, the way that we're looking at our issues, and we need to stop playing the Jedi mind tricks with our children. So one of my main objectives is to really train people in international and human rights law as it applies to us. So when they're sitting in these meetings, on these boards, applying for their grants with our numbers, because we're in a permanent state of poverty, they'll be able to use their international and human rights law framework to really use the resources to help our population the way that we need to be helped.
Excellent. And I'm so glad you used the terminology, because we don't really realize that. We realize innately that we are a special population, but let's look at the definition under international law. Why are we a special population? A couple of things. One is that we have a history with this country that goes back thousands of years, maybe 100 plus thousands of years before the colonial people even come. That was our ancient African race lineage. We have three main lineages that go through the average Afro descendant in the United States. That's that ancient African lineage that made the Indians. So that's when we say that we're part Indian, part Choctaw, which those Indians are not a race. They have two lineages that go through the people called Indians, and that's the African lineage and the Asian lineage. The Asian lineage is a recent lineage. So we have uncovered in the last 20 years have been very exciting, because there has been skeletal remains found. They found skeletons in the ground. They found new artifacts that support everything we're saying. So let me just finish this because I know you love this area too.
I want my daddy's record. I want them bones.
Yes. So we are when we train you to sit on the city, our construct your own city council, you can start making tremendous changes. Our cities, Baltimore would look tremendously different in about a year once we get in power in Detroit and Baltimore and the rest of the city. That's reparations. That's the beginning part of reparations. Like tomorrow evening, I'll be on Reparations Worldwide Radio with the new Black Panthers, Malik Shabazz and Lady Freedom, and they're going to interview us on the preparations for reparations. And what we're talking to, when we're training you now, you would be the preparers or the facilitators for reparations, because everything that we're talking about now is induced, and we're talking about self-repair. We're talking about everything that we're talking about now. Nothing has come from the Congress as of yet until we get you into that knowledge, so that in those seats, so that you can obtain the city and the state funding and the federal funding and the international funding that would be able to change the conditions of these ghettos that we live in, could change the water in Flint, and change some of the problems in the rural areas with the sewage, change the big city problems with these bad schools and these bad schooling, we can change the police. That would make your existence, let's call it your quality of life, tremendously better. You can go out your house at night. We want to make it safe enough in our neighborhoods that you can go back even to the old days where you don't even have to lock your door. Is that safe? Of course, that's going to take a minute, but this is what we're striving to do by increasing the employment, increasing the education, decreasing the crime, increasing the way that our streets look, the way that our cities look, to increase the wherewithal of the people in those cities. Now, this gives you tremendous power too, because our population, which is our weapon, and that's why we need to be unified in this, and we have to get this knowledge out. Our population is our weapon. Our population is able to seat and unseat every president of the United States, because we are a huge population. We can seat and unseat the governors. We can seat and unseat, that's what we're talking about today, seat and unseat the city councils, that sort of thing, because of our population power. And because of our historic situation, we're going to be able to draw upon funds that will be able to correct these exploitative imbalances in our cities. Go ahead, Elena. I know you're anxious, because I know this is your area.
Well, one thing I want to say about the voting, we have to be careful about that, because of the gerrymandering and the selective annexing and moving back zoning laws and all of that. So I would be kind of careful, because we would have to put some things in place about our International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights because of the gerrymandering. So I don't want to promote the current political relationship that we have right now. So with that being said, I'll move on to, I want to talk about those bones.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Under the ILO conventions, the Universal Declaration on Indigenous Peoples' Rights, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, we have a right to our cultural property. And there's a lot of findings that we don't have control of. They don't have our input. They just take our ancestors, and I don't want to refer to them as bones, but they take our ancestors, do what they want with them, and they really don't consult with us about our own cultural property. We own that property, even under the even under the Fourth Geneva Conventions. We have a right to that property. That belongs to us. That's our stuff. So I think we need to educate the population a little bit more. We need professionals so they can really articulate this type of language and information and laws immediately and start utilizing it.
Good. Now, one of the reasons why they do this is because our ancestors tell a story. They tell a story. They give us an historical record of their journey here in the United States before the Asians. So when these construction companies, they want to put up new buildings, a parking lot, and different things, and they destroy our ancestors' historical record, that's just destroying evidence of our indigenous right to the land. We have an indigenous right to the land. Because of our labor, we have increased the wealth of the United States tremendously, to the point of being a superpower. So our right to a piece of that, because labor is not free, and all the acronyms that we gave them to become this great superpower is not free. So us as the second largest population would have tremendous wealth and tremendous power. This would we could change Baltimore into a 21st
Wakanda.
modern city, yeah, into Wakanda.
Wakanda.
Same way with Detroit. We have that ability. So this is the reason why we are trying to fill up the seats in the institute for this session, and I'm going to extreme lengths because I know the fees are sometimes challenging for us. So I'm going to the extreme lengths of finding scholarship money so that it can reduce the burden of those who take the course, because the course is challenging. I won't lie, it's a challenging course, and I'm here, and Elena is here too. I know I'm here to put you through it because I'm going to make you be precise. I'm going to make you be able to deal with all the issues at the city, state, federal, and international level. So the analysis are going to be challenging for a lot, and I'm a challenging professor. Because I demand that you be precise, because you will be put in a position where you will be heading a city that has a $2 billion budget, $6 billion
And
budget,
you'll be
$4 billion budget.
writing your papers 100 times over and over again if it's not right. And he calls you
Yes.
out.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Elena. I didn't want you to tell them all of that, but
No,
I,
you really worked hard with us, Dr. Ansari.
yeah.
And I want to
But
thank
look at
you.
you. You
Yes,
are wonderful.
yes,
Elena is now she is a professor now. But I sent her. I took her through the ringer, and I'm
yes.
gonna take you through the ringer too, because I want you to be able to be powerful and be able to exert yourself. Elena has been to Iran. We sent Elena to Iran, and she was. Well, you tell them about your experience when we sent you on the internship to Iran.
Well, to certify, we had a large research project where we had to pick an issue and use the framework in which Dr. Ansari taught us his methodology, and we had to come up with our own methodology to address our issues, address the issue that we were to speak about, which was police brutality. And he didn't put a parameter on it. He allowed us to explore. But once we got to a certain point, he looked at it and we had to, tweak it a little bit. And it took about 3 months. It was 3 months worth of hard research, preparing and putting it in a context and a case study which applies to us. And once I got it to a certain point, I was able to present it. And as a matter of fact, I can take that presentation and utilize it as a legal tool right now, based on what I know, based on what we have, because those are legal valid concerns and legal arguments. So at the end of the day, we are a population who has been misrepresented politically, legally. Our resources have been absorbed, misappropriated generation after generation. So as a result, we're impoverished. We're in a permanent state of impoverishment, permanent state of violence, permanent state of genocide. The conditions are not good when you're able to do an assessment. So with that being said, we're ready, but we need your help. We need your help. Dr. Ansari, are you okay?
Okay. I had to power up my computer. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Well, I wanted you to tell them the most exciting part. Several of our defenders and about 3 of our defenders went to Iran, and they were treated to a 13-day stay in Iran. They were at a conference, and they were on. I think you were on. How many television stations
We
were you
was on
on?
several.
Yeah, and this was broadcast to uh, Europe. It was broadcast to the. It was worldwide
It was
broadcast.
worldwide. It was a worldwide broadcast. We had other human rights defenders. There were a lot of people there that was interested in the situation, genuine situation of African descendants there. The most that I got out of it was that people around the world are actually concerned and do care, and they don't use us as cannon fodder like our politicians do, or the people who's supposed to represent us. I mean, we're clear, on the situation. And one thing about that trip, it opened my eyes and it gave me an international perspective of where we are and some things that we really need to change in terms of our behavior, the way that we carry ourselves as a population. Some of the things that we co-sign on undermines our humanity, period. So that trip brought me to a lot of conclusions. It was an awakening for me. Uh, I'm a non-denominational spiritual person. So I had a real awakening of where I am as an Afro descendant.
True. This the other defenders had the same experience, and I'm sure that you will too. Uh, our defenders, after they came out of the course, they have been all over. They've been to China. They've been to. We have a defender now that's at the African Human Rights Court in Tanzania. Uh, it gives you this training gives you a real international perspective. We've been to, me and Elena have been to the UN, and when we was at the UN, we go ahead, you can tell them we met
We
the
met.
king,
We met
king of
the, we met the
Atui,
king of Atui.
which is
We
the
met.
Hawaiian kingdom that goes from Hawaii all the way to New Zealand. We met Chief Sachem, Black Indian native that the Europeans first met his tribe when they came to the United States in Massachusetts, Pilgrim, Plymouth Rock. I almost forgot their stuff. Plymouth Rock and all of that. We met a lot of Black Indians,
Mm-hmm.
and so we went from New York to DC, where we went with it was at the National Black Men's Conference, and we
Mm-hmm.
met all the African American, Afro American, and Afro descendant groups.
Mm-hmm.
The New Black Panthers, which is now our real buddies, and so many other excellent groups that you are going to meet as well as you get through this education, because it's really a superior education. And our defenders, you just listen to Elena. She is a professor. She's a law professor now, because she can explain the human rights law to you, and she will take part of the course, and I will train you on parts of the course, and we will also take you with us, because we have a kind of a boutique type of institute in which we nurture you. And if we can give you an internship overseas, set you up with something like overseas, like we did with Elena's class, where they went to Iran. Or we go to the United Nations. We want to take you with us so that you can actually, because we're what we call an experiential human rights institute, which means that we give you the experience along with
Mm-hmm.
the lectures and the book studies and analysis. We take you with us because we want you to sit in our seats and sit in the seats of higher government and be able to explain, be state representatives, city representatives, be ambassadors. We even got a diplomatic section of the course, because
Yes.
this information would allow you to become ambassadors
Mm-hmm.
to different countries as well, because remember, this is international law. So you're going to learn international trade, international development. The video I showed you was on international development. This is how other countries do international development. Well, guess what? They have conferences in New York and DC, overseas, on human rights development, where you will see other human rights defenders and facilitators, and you will be able to conference with them, take notes with them, and
Via
come back.
relationships.
build relationships, come back to the United States much more powerful. We will train you. I see, hey Taff, I see Taff's in here. I'm going to open up in a minute. If you have a question, Taff, greetings, my brother Taff.
Greetings, Taff.
Oh, you know Taff as well. He's a good brother. He's a good brother. He started with us a long time ago.
Yes,
so
I
glad
remember
that he's going to be. So glad he's going to be coming in to take a portion of the courses. So this trains you to do that, and the salary is good for a city and state defender. Once you get done and we get our funding in place and all of that, the projection is that you'll be making between $60,000 to $100,000 a year, depending on the size of your city. So if you have a small city and your city council only can pay you this is what the city pays you. It's not what we pay you, because as we take over these areas, you sit on the city council, so you get city council pay. So some city councils, if you're a small city, they'll pay $60,000. To a larger city, they may pay, like Chicago and the bigger cities with the bigger budgets, they pay more. So, and you also will be able to be qualified to be a human rights director, because this information is what lawyers really take. So after you get finished with this information, you'll be in a strange, awkward position of being not quite an international lawyer, but above the knowledge base of a domestic lawyer as it relates to international issues like reparations and development.
And if I may, Dr. Ansari?
Yes.
Once you become a human rights defender, you're able to file communications, complaints, yes, and actual reparations cases on an individual basis. Say like the ball is dropped domestically, you can take that ball somewhere else. So the courses can be applied right now. There are things that we can do right now. We just need people trained with the knowledge so they'll be able to utilize this as a resource right now. So I urge anyone who's in a position, who has the time and the money to invest, this is a good investment. And not only will you change your life, but you can change your community's quality of life as well.
Absolutely. Now we have a couple of minutes left. Elena, do you want to go over a little bit of your PowerPoint?
Well, I am out of time. I'm actually here for a town hall meeting in my area.
Yes.
So I must be going.
No problem.
And I want to thank you for all that you do, all that you have done, even though we have bumped heads with those papers.
That's okay. I was just thinking about the one I gave you on this Afro-descended piece. I really sent you through it. That's okay.
I haven't forgiven you for that one yet.
That's okay. It's okay. I'm glad that's what made you the woman and the defender that you are at this point. So and I'm going to send them through this too as well. This is what we
don't let them run you off.
So we only have a couple of minutes left. We will you can obtain the replay of this video on YouTube. And this is going to, and to become, to apply, go to our website. That's www.adihr.us. Go to the website and apply.
I'm here. I'm on my way.
All our connections are there. So you'll be able to do that. And so I really appreciate you coming out. We're looking to seat you as our next candidates, and and I'll be working with you on any scholarships that I can bring to kind of ease the burden at any point. So I really thank you so much, and I will be available at our offices. I think the 9 to 5. You can call the school. That's 678-619-4377. If you have any questions, you could text that number, and I'm in and out, and Elena's in and out. So we always pick up our calls, so we'll respond to you. So if there's any quick questions, we're incredibly busy, but if there's any quick questions that we can answer, we will answer those. So I really thank you for tuning in this morning, and I look forward to seeing you in class. So thank you, and I'll hope to see you soon. All right, thank you so much.